This is the Mayhem campaign diary number 5. I think I'll probably call this one the Taking of Fangwood Keep. And before this session began, I actually contacted the player who had not managed to make it to the last one, and we managed to figure out what her character had been off doing. I took the opportunity to take some magic items I thought I would put within Fangwood Keep, and I actually put them, or I formed a small skill challenge heist that I said her character was a part of, and I had her gather them there. Actually, I think almost halfway through the session before she technically met back up with the party, which I'm a little ashamed of. I really wish I could have I could have sped things up a little bit, but I didn't want to force it too much, so that way she'd have to sit there for too long. But I don't feel like she minded too much, but I don't know, maybe I just can't read her that well over Discord. The session started out with Tristan deciding to scout ahead for the rest of the party, since he was able to fly and had better stealth capabilities than the rest of them. They sent the Tressum of Gideon along with him, so that way Gideon couldn't see through the Tressum's eyes and inform them of what was going on. From the secret passages inside the walls of the first floor, they went upwards and entered into a secret armory. There they discovered a suit of full plate, which they decided they were going to be giving to Gideon. After he got it on later in the session, his AC is now 21, I believe. From the full plate, and carrying a shield, and he has the defensive fighting style for fighter, so he's going to be a pain in my ass from now on, I'm pretty sure. I believe the way he described himself was he's now the big iron wall of no. Tristan as a sprite race, we use the fairy race from the Unearthed Arcana, edited a little bit to add like the sprite heart sight ability. But because of that, he has the ability to squeeze through any opening that is at least an inch wide. I don't quite know how to imagine that, how it works, like if he turns into freaking fairy dust and appears on the other side, or if he just liquefies and goes through. I don't know. Actually, I should confirm with Mary how he does that. But scouting ahead, he knew that the room on the outside of the secret armory, there were 2 hobgoblin guards there. Using druidcraft, I think, she created a distraction and then was able to sneak out of the armory and try to go to the central chamber on the second floor. But by peeking through that door, noticed that there were 2 hobgoblins and 2 goblin dogs in there, and it was at that point that I chose to roll to determine if the guards had determined that, like, whatever the distraction was, I think she made like a large rat noise or something, that it wasn't there or that something was off, and one of the guards happened to turn around and see Tristan standing at the door. I chose to have them just kind of hold him at bow point, because they used bow and arrows. They demanded to know who he was, how he got there. Tristan managed to talk his way through it and convince them that he was there to see their leader, that he was like for trade or something. I think she said like something along the lines of, "I'm here to deliver wine," and whatnot. So they went and fetched their leader, a hobgoblin by the name of Fethi Kinshakas, or Fethi for short. Tristan immediately tried to spin a tale about how he had been sent there by the original lord of Pavos' strikers, the Westerlings, and that he was going to reward them for killing these AWOL knights. But Tristan didn't know was that Fethi knew that was bullshit, because he had basically been hired by the leader of Pavos' strikers to kill his own men, and so he knew what was going on, that the men weren't exactly AWOL, or really they were, they just didn't know that they were. So like the whole situation, he had more insight to it than what Tristan thought he did. And because of that, he was able to he knew Tristan was lying right away. But because I determined that Fethi is a very proud hobgoblin, but he was also very bored. This entire job that he had taken on, it hadn't been anything like what he thought it would be. He knew that they were going to take the keep from Pavos' strikers, and then that they were to defend it. He expected for someone to try and lay siege to it. Like, he had expected real battle, real honor. It hadn't been that. They took the keep in the middle of the night, so there wasn't too much resistance, and other than that, they just kind of dug holes, and once they found the opening to these underground tunnels that Pavos wanted them to, he sent some men down and they died, and after that, not a whole lot else happened. He was very bored here, and the job had not been anything like what he had wanted. And then because of that, he was more willing to talk to this stranger that somehow managed to sneak in. And when he knew Tristan was lying to him, he wasn't too insulted by it either. He explained to him that he understood his situation, and that Tristan obviously knew that he was in danger. So because of that, he understands his natural defense to try and lie to him. But then he warned him not to do it again, basically. After some brief conversation, Tristan tried to not really reveal too much information about like why he was there or if he had anyone else with him. Fethi just told his men to dispose of him, basically. It was at that time Tristan decided to cast Charm Person. Fethi failed his save against it, so after that he regarded Tristan as his close personal friend. Tristan suggested that, they go to his quarters and, they continue talking. Very clever on Tristan's part. He made sure that anytime he was like probing Fethi for information, it came off more as casual conversation. The way I described it was like you're trying to come off as a scared sprite who knew he used charm magic, rather than a spy who knew he used charm magic, which paid off in the end. After several minutes of talking, Fethi basically told him that if he gave him 500 gold, he and all of his men would leave the keep right away. No questions asked. Tristan happened to have that much money and therefore paid it. Man of his word, he went on to the balcony of the room that he had been staying in, where he had a guard posted, and he told him to basically, hey, go around, start rounding up the men, tell them to meet out front, and we're heading out. After a few more moments, Tristan actually asked if he would leave some of his men to help with the interrogation of Pavos, who we learned during his conversations with Fethi was actually there, and actually just across the hall, but he kind of kept to himself there. And Fethi told him that he would leave 3 hobgoblins, the ones that happened to be in his room there. After Tristan retrieved the rest of the party, we should actually have them figure out what they're going to call themselves, so I can refer to them that way. After Tristan retrieved the rest of his party, they went in, basically had the hobgoblins that they had hired tie up Pavos. They questioned him to figure out why he was there. They learned that he believes that there was some kind of great magical artifact still beneath the tower, and that he needed his men to take it, but that they couldn't hold it because he wasn't telling them why they were actually there, and he knew that they were starting to doubt him. So he had his lover hire these hobgoblins to kill his men and then hold the tower in their stead. He doesn't know where his lover Alicia is, though. She was supposed to go get more reinforcements and hasn't returned. It's at this point, after much discussion about the hobgoblins and if the reinforcements Alicia was supposedly going to get, that they decided they caught up to the hobgoblins before they got too far away. They bargained with them for at this point the charm magic had worn off, but because he had been paid fairly, Fethi was not too upset over having had charm magic used on him, because he was paid what he would have demanded beforehand anyway. And they determined that with another 500 gold, 250 up front, and then 250 after 3 days' time, that the hobgoblins would remain in the keep and keep it for them. The agreement being that they would be there to intercept whatever forces Alicia came with. If after 3 days' time there had been no battle, they would leave, and if within that 3 days' time there was a battle, they would win it. The party then chose to rest. I had Suri make a survival check, to arrive at the keep a day early because she was still 2 days out. I really wanted to get her into the party, and I didn't want them to just kind of sit around doing nothing for 2 days because it wouldn't have made any sense. So the following morning, some of the hobgoblin scouts found Suri as she had been chasing a squirrel, and they brought her in, and everyone was very happy to see her again. She presented them the magic items that she had stole. She hasn't told them that she stole them yet, which I'm surprised no one really asked. She had 5 items. The only item she knew what it was were the boots of elven kind, which she was wearing. Other than that, the other items, she knew that they were magical because of where she had stolen them from, but she didn't know what they did. She had a sword I described as that its hilt looked like it was rusted, and that the entirety of it was wrapped in a black cloth, but it still had a band on it so that it could be slung over your back. There was a lyre, and then 2 gems. Essentially, everyone picked up an item and attuned to it to figure out what they did. Garion got a hold of a sword called the Disruptor. If you were lawful and you tried to pick up this sword, it would deal 2d6 necrotic damage to you, I believe. If you were chaotic and you picked up the sword, it counted as a +1 weapon. If you used it against a lawful creature, it counted as a +3 weapon. And if you finish a creature off with this, their chest burst open and their organs spill out, which I actually just realized is something I need to go inform them about. For the 2 sorcerers, they got a hold of the Shard of the Far Realm and the Shard of the Feywild. These count as spellcasting focuses for them. A bit of an oversight on my part. I forgot that sorcerers didn't get access to their meta magic until 3rd level, so really the second part of these items aren't going to be useful until after this dungeon, where I plan to level them up, and they'll hit 3rd level. So I feel a little bit bad about that, but what can I do now? And then the lyre was a lyre of building, I believe it's called, which in hindsight may have been a little bit stronger than what I intended, but I'm awarding these items just for the hell of it. I don't know how long I will keep this campaign going. I've got some ideas of where I think the endpoint could be. I just want to give them some fun items just so that they can enjoy themselves. Anyway, after they attuned to their items, they then decided to head down into the lower levels beneath Fangwood in order to see what it was that Pavos had wanted here so badly. And within the first room that they went after, going down a very large spiral staircase, I described the room as being basically painted in blood and viscera, and the dead bodies of hobgoblins littering the floor. It was there that they met the red-capped Figbottom. And the moment that they realized that it was Redcap, they seemed to immediately accept that they knew that this was going to go become a battle, because Redcaps are very violent and bloodthirsty creatures. Though to a very poor initiative roll, Figbottom went last. By the time it got to his turn, he had 4 hit points left, I think, so he only got to make 1 round of attacks, which was 3 attacks, but he had been hit by 2 Ray of Frost, so his speed was literally just 5 feet, and Garion was in front of him, who had that AC of 21, so I was only actually able to hit him 1 time, and it was for 9 damage, but that fight did not go as planned at all. After leaving that room, the next room they went in was completely covered in mirrors. They didn't actually spend any time there or try to figure out why it was covered in mirrors. There were 2 other doors, so they exited them. Both doors led to the same hallway, and it was a hallway that basically had no gravity. It does have gravity, but it is subjective gravity, so in other words, gravity worked here how you thought it did. It was Tristan who was able to discover how it worked, so he was able to tell everyone else how it worked. In other words, if you think that way is down, then you'll fall that way. And because of this, you're basically able to fly while you're here. Had I remembered before the session to write it down, I know there is a special way to determine what your speed is in the astral plane, and that is basically what this was supposed to be, but I forgot to look that up while I was too busy preparing those magic items for them, so I didn't have that on hand, so I just ignored that part. And in this hallway, after wandering around, they found a Grodare, essentially just a fey fish, a rather young one. Only 2 of them could speak to it, because only 2 of them spoke Sylvan. They knew that it wasn't a threat to them. Matter of fact, it was actually very scared of them, and it even told them that it just wanted to go home. And they comforted it. Sui fed it some chicken that she had with her, and then they continued on their way to where they knew this anti-gravity type of effect was originating down one of the hallways. When they got down there, they just found a collapsed laboratory. It's like something exploded, basically. And they were basically able to determine that there had been some kind of arcane machine here, and after something went wrong, this effect on the gravity appeared to be after effect of that happening. Tristan spotted within the rubble a small green gem. No one in the group has identifies, but he knew it was magic, and after a high Arcana check was able to determine that there was some kind of spell in it that would probably be released when you crushed it. So he gave it to Gideon to crush, and Gideon did. It cast the Summon Elemental spell and summon an Earth Elemental, who I think Gideon said he would name Tony when asked by Suri. And he was there that we decided to wrap up the session for the night. It was a rather straightforward session. I was actually rather pleased with it. Everyone really enjoyed that Tristan was able to negotiate a way for them not to have to fight 30 hobgoblins, though I did enjoy that was the outcome that they ended up using, though I think it would have been fun to fight them with that many hobgoblins too. It would have just been a little unfair, though I don't think they quite realized that I'd basically intended for that to be how they chose to get by these hobgoblins, though I did not expect them to chase them down and hire them themselves. So that's actually something that I'm gonna have to keep in my notes for later, now that they have a good relationship with a small band of hobgoblins, which also means I actually need to read up on the culture of hobgoblins again. I just know that they're honorable creatures, or at least that is kind of what I'm going with, so that way they can interact with them later, because I imagine there'll be some kind of situation later where they might want a band of hobgoblins. They need soldiers or something. They probably try to track down this group of them again. At the end of the session, where they were awarding boon points, they basically all gave them to Tristan because of that negotiation, which is good. I mean, the boon points are theirs to do with whatever they want with. That's how it's supposed to work. So I like the system. I actually need to get a hold of Mary, see if there's anything that she wants to spend those on, because I mean, she could use them to. I think she has 15 now. I think you could use that to get another spell. Perhaps she'll pick up Identify. That could be useful. I don't know. Can bards get Identify? I don't know. I'll have to check that. Other than that, I pulled back the GMing curtain a little bit, and I even informed them that after they get through this dungeon, I intend to level them up to level 3. And I'll need to start prepping material for what will happen after they leave Fangwood. I assume that they will go to Azrael's family in order to get reimbursed, because they've spent 750 gold collectively for this keep, and they're going to spend another 250 afterwards for a total of 1,000. They're hoping to get some of that back. I know Garion will want to turn in his bounty in order to get the 100 gold for Pavos. So I've got some small detours for them to do, but nothing specific for them to do. So I've got to start prepping all of that, and I've got a few ideas. For instance, the location where Suri retrieved those magic items from. I feel like that is something that should be coming up again later, as I told her when she acquired them that she did not do so unnoticed, and actually is why she had to leave town in a hurry after her party. So if they go back to the capital, that'll be interesting. Until then, though, I have a week to figure it out, so may all your 20s be natural, and have a good night.